The unspoken crisis driving American collapse. You are being played. You are being distracted by a political circus designed to keep your eyes away from the real disaster. The mainstream media feeds you a constant stream of outrage. They want you fighting over pronouns, over gaffes, over the latest cultural scandal. It's all a game, a grand and terrible piece of political theater, and while you are focused on the stage, the foundation of the nation is collapsing behind the curtain. There is a single, unspoken crisis that makes our national collapse a mathematical certainty. It is the ghost in the machine, the silent driver of our doom. And it is this. And it is born, American population is not just slowing, it is vanishing. We are a biological organism in a state of catastrophic decline. And all the economic and social problems we face are merely symptoms of this one irreversible disease, the grand distraction, a nation lost in a infinite jest. The political and media class operates like the plot of a famous novel, Infinite Jest. In the story, a terrifying film is so entertaining that anyone who watches it becomes catatonic, unable to do anything but watch it on repeat. It is the ultimate weapon of distraction. This is the precise function of our modern political theater. It isn't an infinite jest of manufactured crises and cultural panics. Its goal is not to inform you, but to addict you to outrage, to paralyze you with fear and anger over issues that, in the grand scheme, do not matter. Why are you forced to argue about statues and flags? Because you are not supposed to be looking at the national balance sheet. Why is every news cycle a new culture war firestorm? Because you are not supposed to notice that the birth rate has fallen off a cliff. This distraction is not an accident. It is a strategy. It is how a dying system manages its terminal diagnosis. It keeps the population confused, divided, and utterly blind to the real physical collapse happening all around them. The vanishing core, a biological point of no return. So let us pull back the curtain. Let us ignore the screaming headlines and look at the cold, hard data. The total fertility rate in the United States is now 1.6 astable. Replacement level population requires a rate of 2.1. We are far, catastrophically below that. This is not a future problem. The decline of the native-born population is not a prediction. It is a current, measurable event. We have passed the point of no return. The foundational core of the nation, the demographic engine that powered its growth and stability, is shutting down. This creates a demographic inversion, a pyramid that is now upside down. There are not enough young people to form a stable base. There are too many elderly people at the top, requiring support. This single, simple fact is the master key that unlocks every other problem. It is the reason no political solution can ever work again. The economic death spiral, a pyramid scheme without people. Our entire economic system, particularly Social Security and Medicare, is not a savings plan. It is the largest Ponzi scheme in human history. It functions on a simple principle. New, young workers pay into the system to support the current retirees. For decades, this worked because there were always more young people than old people. That era is over. The ratio of workers to retirees is collapsing. In 1950, there were 16 workers for every one retiree. Today, there are fewer than 3. Soon, there will be 2. The math is brutal and unforgiving. With a shrinking base of native-born workers, the government faces a trilemma, 3 impossible choices. First, it can try massive tax increases. This would crush the remaining young workforce, stifling innovation and driving more people into poverty. Second, it can enact catastrophic benefit cuts. This would betray the elderly who paid into the system their entire lives, leaving them to die in poverty. Third, and most likely, it can resort to hyperinflationary debt. The government will order the Federal Reserve to print the money to cover the shortfall. This will vaporize the currency, destroying the savings and purchasing power of every single American. Our financial system is a pyramid scheme, and we run out of new people for the base. The entire structure is destined to collapse under its own weight. The social fabric torn apart. This demographic decay fuels the social decay we have already documented. The burden on the young becomes unbearable. The generation is already crushed by student debt and unaffordable housing. Now they are told they must also shoulder the immense weight of supporting a massive aging population. This creates a deep, simmering resentment. It fuels the political polarization and the loss of a shared future. There is no sense of we when one generation feels economically cannibalized by another. Furthermore, the brain drain we discuss accelerates. The most ambitious and talented young Americans will not stay to be tax serfs in a collapsing system. They will seek opportunities in countries with a healthier demographic picture. They will leave for Canada, Europe, or Australia. This exodus of talent further hollows out the nation, stripping it of its best minds and most driven citizens. A country losing its youth is a country losing its future. The failed solution and the coming fracture. The ruling class has one proposed solution: mass immigration. They claim this will plug the demographic hole. This is a fantasy and a dangerous one. First, it is unsustainable. It requires ever-increasing astronomical levels of immigration just to maintain a stable population, let alone grow. This creates immense social friction and logistical impossibility. Second, and more critically, does not solve the problem of cultural decay. It accelerates it. A nation is not just an economic zone. It is a shared culture, a common language, and a collective identity. When you import a vast, permanent replacement population at breakneck speed, you shatter any possibility of social cohesion. You create a society of disconnected tribes competing for resources and political power. This is the fracture. This is how a nation ceases to be a nation and becomes a collection of armed interest groups sharing a geographic territory. The official solution is therefore a poison pill. It attempts to solve a biological and fiscal crisis by creating an even greater cultural and social crisis. Conclusion. The final stage is locked in. We have passed the demographic point of no return. The economic math is now impossible. The political theater of infinite jest will continue to ramp up, becoming more bizarre and more divisive to keep you from looking at the numbers. But the numbers do not lie. The foundation of a nation is not just cracked, it is vanishing. You cannot negotiate with demographics. You cannot print enough money to replace a missing generation. You cannot solve a biological collapse with a political speech. This is the unspoken crisis. This is the reason the American collapse is not a possibility, but a predetermined outcome. The final stage is locked in, and the performance on stage is just the entertainment on the